I'm speaking today to several of my clients who have recently had some patterned emotional interactions with someone else at work. These are people who tend to be in roles, two people who tend to be in roles that naturally have competing priorities with each other, and so naturally there would be a tendency to have conflict, but it could be good constructive conflict about issues, when instead what tends to happen is that it becomes emotional. They start having a conversation and one person says something that somewhat offends the other person. That person's amygdala kicks in, their emotions, their blood pressure raises a little bit, and they respond in a way that also then causes the other person to get emotional and escalated and behave badly, and therefore the other person escalates even further, and they get into this escalated emotional banter where they start assuming bad motives from each other and just generally have conflict ongoing now because they expect every encounter to have that kind of emotional escalation. What we ask our clients to do is, as you start having any sort of emotional tweak, a trigger in you where your blood pressure raises, where you can tell your amygdala is kicked in, we ask you to pause. Not just, as your parents used to say, count to 10 when you get angry, a very specific pause, recognizing that I have just become emotional, I have just left the world of reason, and by nature, every time that I get frustrated with something, my tendency is to believe that I am correct, that I am on a high pedestal, and that the way I am seeing this picture is accurate. That is a false perspective, and yet one that we all share the moment that we get emotional. And what we ask our clients to do is instead come to a lower pedestal, blame the process, not the person, question your own virtue about the problem, come to a lower pedestal, and specifically by that, what we mean is to recognize that while you think you have the whole truth, recognize that the real truth is that you only have part of the picture, and that the other person has a valid concern, a valid point that they are trying to make to you. And as we get very emotional, we tend to instead only care about getting our point across to the other person. So I ask our clients to pause, come to a lower pedestal where you question your own virtue, you recognize the other person has a valid point that you are missing, and we want our clients to crave that truth that we are missing. You can do so when you step back, recognize that you've gotten emotional, you come to a lower pedestal, and you crave the truth that the other person has. Now we are back into a rational discussion about how to meet both needs, instead of how to find the real truth, which is partly their truth, partly my truth. How do we get to the more complete version of truth so that we can answer our problems better? And when one of the persons who are getting emotional can do that step back, then it totally stops the pattern of that emotional escalation that has been occurring, so that we can get back to real answers within our company instead of living in drama.